Hey everyone, how goes it? Glad to be with you guys again. It's record time. It's time to show some albums. This past weekend was Record Store Day. I didn't pick up any Record Store Day titles. The one store that's kind of close to me, somewhat, was celebrating Record Store Day. I went there, but I went there in the afternoon after the big line they had in front of the store in the morning had left and disappeared, and I just sort of browsed just out of curiosity to see what was left over, what was passed by a lot of people. Because to be honest with you, I saw a list of the items that were going to be on the second drop for Record Store Day, and I really didn't see anything that was a must-have. If I would have saw Roger Waters' The Wall live in Berlin, I probably would have got it. And I think that's it, because I know the Fleetwood Mac alternative Rumors was out there. The Paul McCartney album in half-speed mastering was out there as well. The Primus Suck on this I probably would have got had I seen it. I do have that on CD. It's something I really don't even listen to that much, to be honest with you, but I did, when I first bought it on CD, I did like it, so I might have grabbed that one, depending on how the price was. But yeah, there wasn't really anything that was just grabbing me, like I gotta, because to do that, I would have to wake up really, really early, drive down there, which is an hour from here, and get a good spot in line before, an hour or so before they opened, and a lot of people were doing that, and I saw pictures online of the store's social media, and I saw how long the line was, like 30, 40 minutes before the store even opened. And I didn't really see an item that made me want to stand in a line like that. So, needless to say, there's no record store items in this video, but it was cool that a lot of people got excited about the event and showed up in large numbers. That's reassuring to see that, you know, people are still into records. To go through all that, but I did manage to buy some cool records. I'm going to show them to you now. Nothing that was a Record Store Day release, but just some very interesting used finds I wanted to get my hands on. The first one is from Soundgarden, Bad Motorfinger. I always thought Bad Motorfinger was a strange name for an album, but this is a badass album. Obviously, it's a 90's classic. I must admit, I'm not the biggest grunge rock fan, especially back in the 90's I wasn't, but I was instantly drawn to this album, mainly for the song Outshined. That is my favorite Soundgarden song. I love that song. I loved it since it was new. It took me a while to like the style of music, grunge rock. I didn't take to it right away, but I did like Outshined right away. I remember that. Back in the day. And it sounds great on this vinyl release, as well as the other popular songs, Rusty Cage, Jesus Christ Pose. I mean, those are the popular tracks on here. But the whole album is badass. Heavy album, too. There's a label there. Real heavy album. Sounds great. I remember my best friend had the CD, and he would let me borrow it sometimes, and I would just play it over and over and over. I remember loving this album. I should have just bought my own damn copy. I don't know what I was being so cheap about back then, but really cool album. So I'm really glad to have this on vinyl. Such a great record. Such a great record. A heavy album. But the songs are still catchy, though. At least to me they are. And I love this album. They are my favorite 90's kind of grunge rock band. I think they did it better than Nirvana and Pearl Jam myself, but that's just my opinion. They were my favorite 90's grunge rock band. No one topped Soundgarden in my opinion. In fact, that's still my opinion. So, very glad that's in the collection now. I found 2 Japanese pressings of some big albums from the 80's, and I'm so glad to have them, so I'm going to show them to you. The first one is from The Police. It's Synchronicity. Of course, I had a used copy of this already, but this Japanese pressing with the obi strip just looks too awesome. And yeah, I saw this, it was coming home with me, without a doubt. I didn't even have to think about it. It just looks too good to me, and I'm glad I bought this, to tell you the truth. Of course, the album comes out on the top here. Let me get the record out. Has the custom label, one side being black, other side being white with the stripes in it. Very big 80s album. So many hits came off of this album. One of the bigger albums from that whole 80s era, and one of my favorite growing up. Love this album. My sister had this record, and I was listening to her album a lot. The memories. I love the memories that come with these 80s albums. And of course, you know, all the credits and lyrics written in Japanese. I can't read it, so they could have printed anything they wanted there. Supposedly it's the lyrics, but I can't read Japanese, so I'm just taking their word for it. It's the lyrics. But a classic album. I must have heard this album hundreds of times. I never get tired of it. I love this record, and so I'm so glad to have a Japanese pressing of it. I always try to make, if I see an album from my past that I really loved, you know, in a Japanese pressing with the obi, I just get it. And over the years, I've actually got a great collection of Japanese pressings now. Well, maybe one of these days I'll make a video about it. Who knows? The next big 80s album, Japanese pressing, is from Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA. This one's a little different. The obi strip song goes along the top of the record. I've never seen that before, that I can recall, and so that's pretty cool. And this record sounds fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I love the mix on this album. It sounds really good. These Japanese pressings are always done so well, and I love the way they sound and how they're put together. Very nice. I wouldn't say I'm a huge Springsteen fan, but I'm a fan of this album, and it came with this insert of photos. There's some band pictures there, and a picture of Bruce on the other side with some credits. Opens up to a lyric sheet, and then we have more or less the same thing on this Japanese writing insert, and a few pictures as well, and the rest of the lyrics here on this sheet. So the usual inserts with these Japanese pressings, but they're nice. It's nice that we see them included. Not a big Springsteen fan, but I am a fan of this album. It has so many good songs on it. To me, my favorite song on here is Cover Me. That is probably my favorite Springsteen song as well, Cover Me. And the title track, as much as it's overplayed on classic rock radio, and trust me, it is, I still love that song. I'm still a fan of that song, Born in the USA. I still listen to it when it comes on the radio, even though I've heard it way too many times. And the classic rock radio station around here plays it way too many times daily. It's still a good song, and I still love it, and always have. So, love the title track. But I think the song, as far as the singles, that were released as singles, the song I like the least is Dancing in the Dark. And even that song's pretty good. But I'm just not the biggest fan of it. Never was, even when it was new. But it's not a bad song. Recently, I've grown to like the song My Hometown, which closes the album. I always thought it was a kind of song. And then one day listening to it on an oldie station, they played it, and I just for some reason connected with the song really well, and I was just feeling it, really feeling it. You ever have that feeling when a song that you normally never been a big fan of, suddenly you just start feeling it, and you could not relate to it, but you feel it a lot more, and that's that was the case with My Hometown, and this was just a couple weeks ago. It was kind of, because I was kind of on the fence of, should I get this? I know I love the album, but should I get it? And then it's like, hey, I get to hear My Hometown on this brilliant pressing. So glad I got both these cool 80s albums, Japanese pressings of each one. It's really going to help out the collection. Another big 80s record, and I can't stop buying this album, and I find it in different formats or whatever. It's Tears for Fears, songs from the Big Chair, and a very rare picture disc, the entire record. I think this just came out recently. Even I like the hype sticker too. Pretty cool. This came out just recently. I saw it in the bins at my record store, and it was under the new arrivals. And I just looked at it like I did not know they were going to make a picture disc out of this album. And me being a huge fan of Tears for Fears, and mainly this album, yeah, it was coming home with me. That's all there was to it. It's my favorite Tears for Fears album, and it's nice to have this rare collectible. It sounds pretty good for a picture disc. Nowadays they make picture disc records a lot better. They do sound better. Obviously, black vinyl just sounds better than this would, but this still sounds great for considering it's a picture disc. It sounds great. And like I said, I'm a huge fan of this record. Been a huge fan of this record since I was 15, when it first came out in 1985. And I got it on CD, cassette. This is now my third vinyl copy of this. Needless to say, I like the album, right? Because I keep buying it over and over and over. And if there's another new format this will come on, I'm sure I'll buy that too. It is just an enjoyable album to have in my collection. I can't say how many times I'll listen to this picture disc. Probably not very often. I have a MoFi pressing of this album. That sounds amazing, and that's my go-to, but it's just a cool thing to have, since I'm a huge fan of this album and huge fan of Tears for Fears. It's just a great thing to have, so very happy that's here. Alright, let's get out of the 80s and look at a couple of 70s records. From a prog rock band, classic prog rock band, that would be Yes, their first album. And this is a UK copy, second pressing, UK. I did have a used copy of this. It was just a really old, partied out American pressing of it. But this UK pressing, second press, is pretty nice. And it's in excellent condition too. There's the gatefold of the album. Yeah, this cover is in really good shape, and so is the vinyl. Vinyl also in great shape. I love spinning this albums. Listening to Starship Trooper on this record sounds so good. Love this album. I still consider myself a casual Yes fan. I'm not a big Yes fan. I don't have all their records or all their albums. I've never seen the band live in person before. Though I'm not that interested in it. But I do like the band. I'm just not I can't say I'm a big time fan, but I do like the band. I do love this album. It's a great album. Some amazing musicianship and great songwriting on it. So it was important to get this album. Being a fan of the album and getting a UK pressing of it, really good. So glad I got that, as well as this one, Close to the Edge. Again, I did have a used American pressing of it, but this is a UK import. And it was in way better condition than my used copy was. Way better. I mean, it was like a night and day difference. And there's the gorgeous gatefold for it. And the music, of course, is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Same Atlantic label as the last one. And this sounds very good too. I mean, I'm really impressed with the condition that these two albums were in. Very good condition, the cover. And the cover actually has a texture to it. Really nice. And the record and the album itself is almost looks like it's never been played before. It's so pristine. It's really nice. And yeah, I really do love this album. Really glad I got these UK pressings too. They sound great. And it makes me wonder if there'll ever be a Yes reunion. I think the singer is up for it, but Steve Howe, I think, has publicly said, no way. But who knows? I won't hold my breath, but it would be nice to see. But at least, like I said, hey, at least we got the records, and they got tons of bootlegs on vinyl, on CD, on YouTube. If you want to get a live Yes fix, it's very easily you can get it very easily. But great to collect the records. Great to collect the records. Not the last one, but the next one up is from Elvis Costello and the Attractions, Armed Forces. This is one I wasn't really familiar with. I thought I'd give it a try. My band covers a song from this album, which is What's So Funny About Peace, Love, and Understanding. We cover that song. It's a fun song to cover, and I like playing that song. And so ever since we learned it, I've been curious to hear the album. So I found a really nice, decent used copy of it. It could use a little once over, but it's in good shape. And so far I've only spun side one of this record, and I wouldn't say I'm in love with the album, but it's not bad. It's not bad. I guess I get used to it. I've never been an Elvis Costello fan. There was something about he's one of those singers where I just couldn't get into his voice, and so I never collected his albums or got into his music at all. If they played him on the radio, I changed the channel, that sort of thing. But when I had to learn that song and I was forced to listen to it because I had to learn the drum part, I then realized, number one, it's a good song, and I like playing it, and it made me curious just to seek out his other albums and listen to some of his other songs. Like I said, I only listened to side one so far, but I thought this was a good album, and I'm getting more used to his voice. Before I was always put off by his voice, and starting to come around a little bit. All right, last one. And I thought I'd take a chance on this. It's Suzanne Vega, Solitude Standing. Obviously, I bought it for Luca. And Tom's Diner, though it's not the version I was used to hearing. I was used to hearing the dancey hip-hop remix of it. Here on this album, she sings it a cappella. But I was at least aware of it. I wouldn't say I was a fan of it, but I knew it. I've heard it before. I was more or less a fan of the song Luca, always have been. Her voice sounds great on it. This is actually a really good album. I enjoyed this more than I thought I would. I thought I'd probably only like the one song, maybe one or two others, and then hate the rest of the album. I ended up liking almost every song on here. It is a good album, and her voice sounds great on it. And this was an enjoyable spin. I think when I'm editing photos, because I like to do photography as a hobby, when I'm in here editing pictures, this would be a nice record to throw on in the background while I'm editing my pictures. It has that nice vibe to it that'll put me in the creative mood. I did enjoy this album. The songs are really well written. Her voice sounds great on all the tracks. You know what got me interested in this in the first place is on YouTube I noticed there's some people, younger people, who react to songs they were hearing for the first time from the 80s and early 90s. And another YouTuber reacted to Luca, listening to it for the first time. They didn't know anything about the song. It's just it was requested on their channel, so they just listened without doing any research on the song. And the reaction they had once they realized what the song was about, what she was singing about, the lyrics about an abused child, that you could just see their face drop like, oh my. Which is pretty much my reaction back in '87, I think, when the album came out. That was my reaction too, when watching the video for the first time. It's like, oh, she's singing about an abused child. This is just not a kid's song, it's about an abused child. And I always liked her voice on that song, and I can say the same for every song on this album. I like this album, and it's going to get a lot of spins. I can tell already, because I've already listened to the whole thing 2 or 3 times since I've had it. And, yeah, I really enjoy it. Alright, that's going to be it. Just a short little pile of albums and my little record store day rant. Leave me some comments. Let me know what you guys got for record store day, if you participated at all. Or just say hello. Or if you have any memories or anything to say about those records, I would love to chat with you guys online. That's my favorite part of posting videos, is reading comments. Alright, that'll do it for now. See you guys at the next video. Take care.